I came over, they issued an engine notice for, I don't know, all of 5 minutes. So
Colliding, totally colliding. I just see you and hold in mind.
No, it's totally fine. You're like the 5th person who knows. You didn't even get 4 hours.
It had a crash earlier on me. Just froze completely, and then I tried to restart it, and it just kept looping to trying to restore since the update failed, and then it wouldn't do anything. And every time I turned it off and turned it back on, it did the same thing. I finally got it to boot, and now it's doing this shit.
What's the way?
Really fun. A lot of aftermarket. I felt like
Good or bad?
really good meeting time mark.
Oh, good.
I felt like a rich person. It was really, really fun.
Great catch,
Cherry.
everybody.
Yeah. You did miss it. You missed that part. But yeah, they were like walking around, just doing like cocktails and stuff like that. And like this weird.
I wasn't there for that.
It was weird. I felt like
My daughter was sleeping.
that's pretty though, right?
How does it take advantage of that?
That's fun.
Or was it fun to get here like that?
Got to drink with my cousins. That was really fun.
Did you drink, Roy?
Me? Oh, I drank. I wasn't driving. I had beer in my apartment. My apartment in a hotel room. We'd go back. Baby would go down. Go outside and start drinking. We were out in the hall, she went around and had beer, followed by playing cards and drinking.
It's like 3 days of straight drinking.
Sounds like
Essentially, this is all the stuff behind the scenes that's making that work.
It's massive church.
It really is. Okay.
Let's get practice.
No, you're good. It's hard. That's cool. I'm sorry, I don't have that. Oh. Nowhere near technology. I don't want to be able to line a code. Over by.
All right, let's go ahead and get started today's class. So three things we are going. So today is the last class of the constructors and callbacks. We're going to look at a little bit of constructors, and we'll do a revision of callbacks. I'll talk more about that. So in today's class, what are we going to do? First, I'll mention the homework so that I can get that out of the way for the next week. The second is we have a small project. You guys are going to divide into groups of 3. Then we'll do this project. Probably 3/4 of the class. And the last part of the class would be a little bit revision about the callbacks. We have an activity related to callbacks, but don't worry, I will do that activity with you guys. You guys can watch it. So it's kind of revision before we move on to some newer topics starting this weekend. All right. The last point is the checkpoint. There's a checkpoint at the end of the class. Again, it doesn't count towards your grade or class or anything. So take that checkpoints toward the end of the class. So I'll try to leave like around 20 minutes for that. Okay. All right. So let's start with the homework. So homework for next week is inside. I'm not going to go over through it. I just want to show you guys the homework is over here. Now before, as soon as I open it, you guys will notice the first bold line. Let me zoom it if you can't see it. So it says the homework as, oh wait, hold on. Let me why is this one not working? Try again. The what?
The computer behind it. That's what happened last time. I had to reboot it.
How do I reboot that? From here?
I think that do it manually.
Manually? Let me try this.
You guys not even gonna grade it. It's like,
You don't really explain
No, I haven't started thinking, so I was going to show you. So, you guys, in the meanwhile, when it reboots, you can see the assignment, and the first line it says this is optional. Of course, you submit it or don't submit it. But I would say I will highly recommend you guys try it at least. I mean, you guys, we know. I mean, grade, you get a grade or not, it doesn't matter. But what the assignment does is it kind of reviews what you have learned from the previous week. So I would highly recommend take a look at the assignment, do the assignment as it was due and as it wasn't optional. But I'm here to mention that it is optional. But don't lag behind and be like, okay, I'm not going to do it. Please do give it a try. Again, this is for it will help you solidify the concept that we learned last week. If there's any issues, any questions, please bring it up and we can help you with the assignment. So please do give it a try. So that assignment is due next week. All right, next Thursday. All right, any questions on that? Well, if you have any questions, go through the assignment. Nick and Will are here. I'm here. You can ask any questions about the homework, but the instructions are pretty, pretty descriptive over there. Oh man, it's taking time to reboot this thing. All right, so the next thing is the small project that you guys are going to do. Let's go ahead and form groups of 3. This time you guys go ahead and pick your partners, get into, and we are going to do this mini project in the class. All right, and then I'll show you what the small project is.
I see how it is.
Okay, I don't know what's wrong with this. Let's see. If you guys want, you can look over there or shift over here so that you can see this. Right?
Fucking joke.
Yeah.
Sure did.
turn around, you're good.
All right, so all right, give me a few minutes. I'll go over it, and then you guys can discuss this. So if you see on the screen, this is how the end product should be working like. So you see, it says node CLI, the small GIF that is running at the bottom. Okay, so it says node CLI. CLI, it's not anything. It's just your JS file. The JS file is called CLI.js. So you can skip the .js part. It's still Node recognizes it and runs it. So it's basically saying node space CLI.js. Okay, the show, and then after that, those are 2 input parameters, the arguments. Okay, so you guys need to, what this does is you put in a show and then the name of the show, then it will go and search for that show. Okay, it's too small. You know what, let me actually run this. I will run this for you guys over here. Okay, So let me go back. Callbacks. Okay, clear this. CD 14. Salt. Okay, so it's going to give me an error, but let me run this. CD CLI. So you see when I type in, it says CLI.js. That's what it is. Or you can do without the JS also. It doesn't matter. Node will smart enough to pick it up. And then it said show. Let me put a name of a show. Okay. Cannot find module. Okay. Let me do a npm install request. Okay. Let's try this again. Okay. So this is how it should be working. So you are going to, when your project is done, you're going to say node CLI.js, your JS file. That's going to be a main file. Then you're going to say show and then a name of the show. Anything after show would be the name of the show. And when I press enter, it's going to show me this information. Okay, that's one part. The second part is you're going to let me show this one more. So this one doesn't have any spaces in it, but let's suppose you have to make sure that if there are spaces in your show, it still works. You see, I had spaces in the next show and it still goes and picks it up. Okay. The second part of this is I can type in, is it an actor? Is it okay, yeah, the second part is that my second command, the first is show, the second is actor. So I will say node CLI space actor and the name of the actor, then name of the TV actor, and then it is going to go and search for that actor and bring in the information. Okay? Any question on how this is, like how the output and how this works? We look at it, what it is doing, but this is how the end product should be. Okay? Now, of course, the information is coming from an API call. Okay, we'll see those in instructions, but basically this is how it should be. And your main file is going to be called CLI. Okay, CLI.js, and then two commands, show and actor. Okay, make sure you handle the spaces. All right, so this is divided into like almost like 3 parts. All right. So first part, you guys go ahead, read this. What in the first part, we are not starting anything. You guys are going to kind of design and see with this product in mind what how would your code look like? How does your architecture look like? Okay. So at this point, I have given you how the final product should be looking like. You guys have to think about it and see what are the components and what do you guys have to do about it. All right. Let's take like 15 minutes maybe. Go ahead, read the instructions and come up with you can come up with like a small diagram, how your components are, or some bullet points. Okay.
I think we're using the OMDB.
I think it is. Let me confirm what it was. The reason is I'm not sure because I think I saw a different URL. Let me just confirm. Let's see. No, it's TV Maze. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I didn't see OMDB. Yeah, it's in the later instructions and we'll go through it.
They got like really nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's start with this.
Yeah, yeah.
Is everybody in groups of 3, right? Is anybody looking for a team or?
Yeah, right now we're just, pseudo, so do this
Alright, okay, so what do you guys see? Yeah. So we have optional chairs, and then yeah, that would okay, so
Yeah, operation area, API, or file. It's like your team.
like what the first parameter was.
It shows like the person, like it's like now we're gonna look at operationally, so is there a system or desired right, yeah.
So so after that, we have the what do you guys see before?
TV variable. We kind of have to change.
Switch API? What is it? Switch guide.
Switch case.
Oh, switch case.
Yeah, that thingy.
Yeah.
Alright, so where's it from?
So guys, at this point, don't think about code or anything. Just high level. How many files do you need? How are you going to divide up the code? Where is going to go what? Not like what code are you going to write. We have those few minutes for that later on. The best thing is if there's like a diagram, I'll show you in the end what it looks like. But if you guys can come up with like a boxes or something, right? Let's suppose, or you guys already know the CLI. So I'm going to have a file called CLI. It's going to communicate with something, right? I have two options. I have shows and actors, right? So this is kind of dividing up now, right? Think like that. Might as well show you the whole diagram. 2 minutes.
Pretty important.
By default, that's still okay.
Right.
So yeah. Yeah, that was
Well,
So I kind of like what you're doing here, so I would maybe say keep going on that picture. What is that? That's actually good.
Sure. That allows you to, if all of these were like 10 lines of code, that's a code base organized. What's the training like yesterday when we were doing the class homework, that's how they do classes. That's all you need. class, and I actually
So-
stuff in class. So that would function. That is all that's
So we
required.
want to connect to
All that's all
but we don't necessarily want to
Well,
create
that doesn't include it, we have to.
something else. What is another option?
Is that big? That's all. That's all that's
We're gonna make it big.
So small things are not.
Yeah.
So what
I want to
handle
shut my computer down so I can make sure I save it this time. I want to commit to this where, but I don't want to.
So you're going to make it
So we're gonna have one method that
Oh,
So
This is
now we get that. Now we have this one. Now we're just
rename this. It is dot getting, not dot getting. Simply, it should be dot get.
yes, that's what.
So what should I name it? Could it be doesn't matter?
No, this is how it should be named. Dot get ignored.
Where do you need JSON object?
Okay.
possibly.
It's also you might create something new.
I was just following that.
So go ahead and
Okay.
So,
What's the design of act referring to hit show? Are they two different APIs?
so it'll submit like a JSON package or everything.
If we come in
Yeah.
here, we see this part,
You can
right,
write it.
this is the parameter, figures out what it's called. Now it's calling shows. Shows is an API call, so it's built on what it is
Well, I don't want this to run.
Now this has to be on, now what
You can either you're gonna go here.
There you go. So show is gonna handle the show's data.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I wouldn't draw it like that. I would more or less draw it like a variable here.
This happened earlier.
It happened earlier too?
My computer froze,
This can be.
and then I tried resetting it, and it's going on and now I'm trying to revert back to its previous version.
That's why.
So every time I turn it off and turn it back on, it goes back to so when you look here, you can get to my login bar and I'm able to
Shows has
it doesn't crash again.
that have.
It's a good idea. Keep pushing it, especially if that's what's happening.
Look at how safe they're called.
Now we're back to So what other property can we show?
So. That's harder. I'm just saying.
We can do
This
could be environments.
So
If there are those are constants. Then there should be. Alright, so
so this is going to kind of be your, this is your constructor class. So we can keep it so many classes, but each one is going to have functions and properties.
Okay.
So
Anybody wants to go ahead and share something like a diagram of or a high level overview how you're going to divide the code, or how does your architecture looks like? You guys have something?
we haven't drawn it out, but
Okay. Yeah, you can explain it. Mhm.
so we have our CLI that's going to be our main user interaction.
Okay.
So the user is just gonna, that's where they send in the commands and everything, that's where it generates
Okay.
everything, and probably is where we're gonna have it displayed.
Right.
Then we have our show.js, which is gonna handle the API for the shows.
Okay. Awesome.
So the CLI is going to call the shell, and then we have an after.js.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I don't think you can start with
The client CLI, we don't know if it's the same API or not.
Okay.
Yet, so
Yeah.
we had to split out to where it was just in case, but the CLI would call the actors to not go under the shell.
Okay.
And then we have what we use is a functions.js, which is going to be anything like the whole user input. We have a command and then a variable, but it can be multiple spaces.
Okay.
So we want to be able to have the CLI call that, and it's going to be the generic functions that are shared throughout all of them.
Okay.
That they can all like reference possibly.
Yeah, like this.
Okay. All right, guys. So over here, Roy and his group was sharing some information. They have roughly when you start coding, you probably might reduce it. You might not need these many files. But for now, I like this. They are saying they have a CLI.js. Everybody understand what the CLI means?
This is your index.
Well, what does it stand for?
Command line interface.
Command line interface. Basically, they're saying that this is your file that's going to be an interface for the user. So the first, when user comes in, they're going to say node CLI.js. They are not going to say node actor, node show, or node function.js. They're going to say node CLI.js. So this means this is your starting point, right? So this team they're going to divide it into actor.js, show.js, that's going to be interacting with CLI. And then they have a functions.js that they're going to store some common functions that can be used in both of these or possibly in CLI.js. That's a really good start. Okay, awesome. Anybody else? Huh? What about you guys?
We pretty much have the same kind of framework, except we broke out the API call into a single file as well.
API
So,
call.
It would, in this diagram, it would fall on functions.
Okay, so you have a CLI module, okay, and then you have a
Actors and shows.
actors and shows.
And then both of those would be able to call an API function file.
Okay,
It should be the same.
Yeah,
It's going to be the
basically
same
be
file.
the same.
okay,
And then it returns the results back up to the two.
okay.
Accordingly.
So, okay, all right. So CLI starts with CLI, then it goes into two other modules. One is called actor and shows, okay, and both of these have a API module that they both refer to so that they can get the information back, and then whatever the information is, if it needs parsing or whatever, we don't know at this point, but it's going to make it pretty and then send it back to CLI so that it can display to the user, something like that. Okay, yeah, that's good too. Yeah, kind of similar.
Yeah.
Architecture. Yeah. Yeah. But you guys are dividing this into keeping the API part out. So.
Right, and if we had any other shared functions, I would probably put that in different ones. So the
Okay.
API is its own world.
Right.
Separation. That's
Okay. Good. All right. One more group. Anybody else? Okay.
Without much reason, we decided to go with a single file.
With a what? With a single file? That is not acceptable. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. What's your reasoning behind a single file?
It's easier.
It's easier to write the code, or
Yeah, and you can see everything in one file.
you can see everything. So I can. All right. So I'm going to have.
Without much reason.
Okay, so I'm going to have one file of like 1,000 lines, right? No, I'm just saying. So it's going to be a longer file versus dividing it, right? So what are the advantages and disadvantages? Advantages that you have the one file, you don't have to worry about it.
It's I think smarter to keep one file,
Okay.
but because we're not gonna have 1,000 lines.
Okay.
I agree, we have a lot of them.
Right, right. So, at this point, it might look small, but once you start writing code, it might expand out. So you have like, first of all, you have logic to write to separate the command lines. First of all, right? You have two options: show and actor, and then after that, you have it could be the third argument is going to have spaces and all that stuff, right? So there's that logic, and then when you parse that logic, then you have to go to some API and get this information back. Okay, now information is going to probably come back in a JSON file. You'll probably have to parse it a little bit and then try to show it on the screen. Okay, that's one thing. So you see, it's kind of getting bigger and bigger. So try the one file. I don't recommend it. It's kind of hard to maintain if everything is in one file. But it would be a good practice if you guys start dividing it up. But again, try it and see. Yeah, you're in two. All right. The compromise is 2 files now. Okay. All right. So, so what I have, this is these are exactly it's the same. Let me just show you this. What the solution says, and it's pretty much the same thing that you guys that all the two groups, not the third one, has come up with. So it's pretty much the same thing. So you have a CLI file, and in this, it's calling they're calling it TV. You guys are calling it functions, actor, or shows. Same thing. These two, find, show, and find actors, are functions that belong to this file, which you guys are also saying the same thing. And then the third part was to write it to a log file. So you guys are going to write it to a log file. You guys have an API call, same thing. You guys can separate this out and try it out and see there are different solutions for the same thing. Try it out and see what happens. But in the end, make sure that this is writing to a file system, a log.js. Okay. So, so this will be the basic architecture. You can have either 3 different JS files or make it 2. The second one would have your find, show, and find actor. When we look at the APIs, it's probably the same API, so it might be easier not to separate them out and create one, so that you guys are actually calling the same APIs. All right. So that's how the architecture is going to look like, and these are all good options. So give it a try and see how it works out. Any questions on that before we proceed? Yes.
What was the log for? Is that just to keep like a history of queries?
Yeah, what has been searched. I think the ask is to store the if it's not mentioned over here, it's probably going to come up next. Yeah, so whatever you get back, you just have to print it out in the log file. Like whatever you see on the screen, this thing you have to put it in a log file. Yeah, I think the practice is that you guys basically get to use the FS module and write it to a log file. That's the purpose. Okay. Let's see. I think the next part is you guys are going to start the coding part, and in this one, don't worry about the APIs, find, show, and all that stuff. Work on the CLI. The CLI is that I type something in, I type the file name node, and it takes care of the spaces and all that stuff, has a switch case, if else, whatever, show an actor, and then prints it out. That's all in this CLI. Okay. All right, go ahead and start this one. If any team is not able to get completed, we'll share the solution so that for the next part you guys can use that solution and start building on top of that. All right. Let's take probably like 15.
CLI file?
Yeah, just the CLI file. Just program the CLI file. And this is all the instructions are given to you. This is all you need to do for now. You have a question?
No.
No? Okay. All right, discussing.
Huh?
Really well. Thanks for privacy and all. Does it matter which project we do? So CLI is, yeah, so exercise pulse. We'll start there. Okay, cool. Just has something Alright, so CLI, so we
So that's what. So what do we have to
there's two hours sitting where I was.
No, I can see.
X-rays, right?
What are we switching? Okay. How do we get that? How do we get that?
Hey, Will?
Yeah,
guys back out to a second.
I will now. I don't think I
Yeah, it's fine.
So the thing that
Yeah, we need to parse the command.
So do take a look at the instructions. I can't show the whole thing over here, but Will has slacked out the instructions. At the bottom, they have what exactly needs to be done. Okay. So there's no request require any package right now, so don't worry about that. No installations, nothing.
Well, yeah, we did check that there.
We're not doing, and then they said it depends on. So then we'll basically show what they have.
And as the teams complete this, please raise your hand. I'm going to come around. I just want to see the working product, this part only.
So now what this gives you is not the first two that are like your home directory. It just gives you everything. That's what you have right now. So now what do you want to do second?
I think I would say that
So we don't care about.
the first is user installing. Let's show our
No, it's just.
Right.
That makes sense.
So I'm doing user input. I'm basically stripping out. Basically, I'm going to strip out the first two. Console.
Spelled the same way every time. And then once it becomes lucky, you know you spelled that. Oh, go find it. That's pretty cool.
Oh, slice. There we go.
Right,
So now we have showing page.
Yeah.
And those are the user inputs. So we're the user input, but user input is going to be switch keys.
Again, yeah. So basically, this line again.
User input, but now it's going to be hash shows. Which one do we want it to be? We want it to be this is going to be our action. So we want the user input 0 because that's going to be the action. We want the first one.
So for this exercise, I just want to see a console log. Whatever the input is, console log the same thing. Like it should say show or actor, and then whatever I typed in as my third argument.
Inside the parentheses, inside these parentheses, it's actually pretty good. So that'll just bring everything together. Okay, there it is. I understand that it cuts off whatever number you give out, that's just
So slice is a function that you can utilize that can cut off the last array where you want a portion of the array somewhere along the line. It's just any block portion. You can use slice to do that.
Why was that necessary? Because we don't want the first two in that array. So they're like the node and the file. Right? So that just we don't set that up. So we don't have to go through and start slicing.
So what we need to do is basically turn this into straight line. The first one, which is going to be your action, but then join the
We can always
so what you can do is you
That's right.
creating a function.
It's definitely useful. So that's
No one made us do it, it was purely ours. Well, no.
we always have it. We always have it. We just want to put it in a variable where we don't have to.
Which we only do once a lot.
Every app it's not
So this is going to do
Now just making sure like
now all we have to do
So, for example, we don't actually have to slice the first one to get user commands. We immediately know user commands get used. So we can do that. We don't have to technically do that first part. Now, the second part, how do you get a whole list of array values to put them together? Now you have to do this complex loop. You know you have to skip one, you have to skip two. So at this point, an easier way would just be slice off one to know So you're right, we don't technically need to do that first part.
I just want to make sure I'm able to
Yeah. Does that make sense, guys? So you can cut that so that was like 2 lines. How would you cut this down to 2 lines?
told the guy, and he's our graphics. Did you live it out again?
Yeah. There you go. Oh, do I have to? Go ahead and do that. Yeah.
That's so pigment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Should have been like, I mean, that should have
Now we want to do research.
That'll dig, huh?
Where it's like wire and
Now user input.
period. And it has a cloud. We did it on Tuesday.
Working?
Yeah. Now.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of. Oh, that's for those two.
Console log actions, splitting up the process, first slicing, all of them.
So do you know what I mean?
Different approach, but works. What does that mean? Is there a better way? Well, actually, it is the same. You guys are using the join function, right? Yeah. It's the same.
I was using a for each.
So what is this
when I changed the join? I was like, what's a join? And
Yeah.
she showed me, and I was like, oh, this is
Yeah, yeah. No, I meant that at the bottom it says use the slide join. You guys are using the same.
Because you're able to encapsulate.
There was a hint somewhere.
This code can work. And then when you guys come back and say, I need to do this, instead of looking at how you did it.
Yeah, I don't see it, but yeah.
You'll be able to copy paste the function. So much easier that way. And that
So one team is done. Anybody else?
makes me
Any other team done?
small bits. Not a group code, but small bits. Go ahead and like do a concept log so you can see that it works. And then we'll long bit.
So I did one
So you're doing something else
I
instead.
feel like I'm gonna have
Oh yeah.
So like do that instead and make that more.
No,
I'm excited to go back to do
so I have my
No, that'd be
maybe I'm kind of a breaker in my work waiting for it. I don't know. My actions so did you split on that? For each task and
I feel you.
Yeah, just start typing junk. Like just type it. You don't need it. It's that search engine.
variables or the action. Then I have written in requiring so Spotify is on, Spotify is
You know, find one.
We're getting errors, we try and solve an error.
Me and Daniel are looking at that for about 3 hours.
Spotify errors are the one exception. This one I think was most of my clever ones were from Luke.
Find your keys.
So yeah, $10 check my email. They would sell out pretty often. I was doing that a lot like a year ago, for like 3 months. Looking at it, my closet's so full of shirts. I can't get rid of them. 4 days. It's all about having a job that doesn't like you. Right. That's what I'm here for.
So now let's clean this up. So let's go ahead and have some uses of a function.
What the two and a console log the result as a whole. So it kind of solved that whole thing where it was spamming out. I did that totally by accident. It was just how I wanted to. My text file, so I did. I got Spotify this song. I wanted to
want to create a function that
Oh, that's what we're doing. See, we're trying to
Alright, so functions are verbs.
Right, but you'll just
So a standard function name in one single function. There you go.
Yes.
That works.
This log
So always
to the string.
There's always standard function verbs. That function get set. Those are some verbs that are functions.
So with no console log, for some reason it wouldn't whatever it wouldn't have to show.
This is
So I say show and then you show error that makes sense. Just take that and put the tricky part over here is your show can services, so I'm not sure what you guys are. And it shows
so now what happens? Now what
It's not hard. You have to do it.
What do we have to do now? If you run your code right now, what would happen?
You don't have to bring it into the source. Good call. Yes, I always forget that. All my functions. I was wondering why we can still do it. Okay. We just want to do that.
Yes, right. This, right?
Oh, that 10% mark.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was looking for an excuse to say cuss.
There you go.
You guys did
So the next thing we do, we just have to copy that function.
Oh, there it is.
That's something we'll put in homework. That one right there.
the whole like processor right now.
Yeah, what's it?
It's like the line.
Alright, so now you have your
All right, looks like almost everybody is done. So we'll move on to the next one. I'll show you the solution for this one. I saw most of the code and looks like you guys are on the right track. Where is it? So I'll just show you guys. Okay, so you guys use the slice and the join, and that's what it is. The only thing, I don't know if anybody did the bonus part. The bonus was that if I do not enter anything, it should take a default value. And this is how the code is, that if I don't enter anything, it just like, puts a default value over there. All right. So it is checking that if not search, that I did not enter my first argument, then it will default it to keyword show. And if I did not enter the show name, it's going to default it to something. Okay, that was the bonus part. And seems like everybody got the hang of slice and join. Yes.
So there's no API involved?
No, that's the second part. You guys went too far ahead. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So, who posts this solution right now? If you want this as a starting point, most of I think all of you guys got it. So start on the same one, and I'll post this solution in a minute. Let's go into the second part. All right, this is where you're going to make that API call. Okay, so for API call, you need a request package. Go ahead, install the request package. The URL to this is the URL. You don't need any API keys or anything. Just type in the URL, pass in the arguments, and it should return you the data. All right. So go ahead and look at the instructions, and you can start on the second part. And this is getting a TV show. Just the show, especially you guys over there. Just the show. No actor, just the show. Yeah. So the solution for the first one is there. If you guys want to use that. You guys, you guys can continue on the same file. I'm just saying, if anybody who was not able to complete, they can use the solution for the
It'll be in the solution above the instructions, and I think it's in the unsolved. The new unsolved has the starter file for the new JavaScript.
We just need to know the instructions.
Yeah, what do you mean? Have the instructions this time.
Just make something.
So two parts, you're making a call for the show and also saving it to a log file.
That's when making our API now. So yeah, that's good. Oh, I just started.
Right, loud ball. It's not even very
Student said that. All right. Is any instructions? That's their diagram. You want to be our diagram?
So requests. Require equals. So it's the name of the
TV. We don't. All we have is CLS.
No, it is.
You see that? Well, let's start naming out random things.
Oh.
No, it's just a show.
So we only have CD.
This is
Shows rating. Network.
I'm going to prefer what we do. Because they want a method called find show, and I would prefer a full function called find show. that's able to handle functions data. So it's a good standard.
This is considered.
Yeah, there was a solve for this one.
Yeah, so right. So you show what to then call creating our API. So we also need another function called that. So it's going to create that file as well.
And then we have to.
Yeah, so it's called this our diagram. Okay, so in here we do the yeah, so the request execution instructions.
Okay.
And back there, you're talking about the OMDB?
I think we're
No,
gonna use
not on TV something. TV maze.
Term is the shell. So this is going to be
Error, and then
for the most part,
So did you already install the package?
No,
just
TV maze. What's this thing? It says request.
So you do it in 3D.
So this is.
I don't know. Yeah, so that is showed there.
So we don't even.
Yeah, there's no. So we just need what that request looks on. Yeah, it's like something different. After getting a JSON response, so no, we need the URL. ACI or the URLs. It just says URLs.
it's just
So go ahead and take a function. That would be called make API call, get API data. You guys come up with that?
Yeah. Do you need an API key?
Yeah.
Really? It should work. Do you try that? It should work without the API key. You don't need an API key. Yeah.
No, I did. We can do.
This?
I know, but we need to do,
So that's the URL.
this one,
But if I want to make sure my response to stuff is terminal is.
And
Surprised it's not something like Google Docs, but no, but like really.
Alright, so we have that. Now, we want to make our API call. So we have show, and it says shows there. So we might actually want two variables. We want our operation show or after, and then our show or name. So let's come up with choosing name, and we'll be able to pass those names into this graph. Just to make the API file.
so, let's just throw in our user
Yeah, so one word. One word.
So you can read it.
Well, it is going to be great. Oh, right.
So now we need to, how do we populate those variables?
You know what?
Cool. So now we have this generic function that's going to use this as, we also need to finish it so it's actually making it no, it's not. It's the same var URL and X.
We would have to create one person on this periodically.
Yeah.
So that's important.
So let's import.
So yeah, Jason Morris, URL function. So you also
Yeah.
have local records.
Okay.
So we and then we're doing the required rating just be so it's within the same without area. We have it coming in where we can find the show because it's not part of it, but it's defined. So then we have modular expertise.
Well, so over here.
Yeah, and then is
Like a promise?
so it's just inside the function of it.
Well, that's what good code is. Spotify, it's just like request URL dot then data.
Yeah, so we can just write our function. We can actually just from here we can do if it's error, don't do anything, if or console log out the body. Yeah. That's good work.
But if this was wrong, it would be.
Yeah. So hopefully that works. I would think it does. No, we don't need a dot then. So if that then is this. I think it's like not request, but other types of
You can use it as a promise. Make sure you get well, like I'm looking at the API for Spotify. Yeah, for request it'll have request with the URL, and then after it'll have a dot then with the function to proxy the data.
Yeah. That's it. So there's several ways to do it.
Yeah.
These are all
I didn't use it, so I don't have an example. Do it that way. So I have an example on hand on that. All right, so now in here, so if it's successful, which is 200, that's console log body.
This or baseball.
I would use the name.
This
That would require.
I think that's.
So now we have this cool API.
No, there shouldn't be any. The way you guys are doing it, there shouldn't be any.
So let's go ahead and import
If it was missing, it would say you are missing something.
Export. Yeah, we can do that.
It's module.exports.
Yeah. Or whatever variable.
Oh, I know. You guys are not initializing the constructor. You guys do this. Is equal to new TV. You have to initialize that.
You do it as a function.
You're right. I think that's what's missing. Try that.
I think get API used to be like this. If I'm not mistaken.
Let get API.
Yeah. Or bar.
Yeah, I'm sure it
Yeah. You guys done?
Yes.
Is that a trick question?
So CLI is going to call shows. Then after it shows is what's going to handle and manipulate all the to what they magic, logic, and what they do. So CLI passes shows the blank with the creates the shows object, passes it the information, then shows is going to execute and do a call the API and then back up. Returns the results. And from there, API can parse out the data and display or assume the data is there. Like each one is going to have the same thing.
Yeah, I know what it is. So we're calling the show, but the show has so the URL
Which is what's happening. So now we have
Well, you shouldn't be writing this file. The CLI should be
more yeah. I do it. So many examples without
Just showing how it's going to be
we got that. So now, how do we do this? We need, how do we create this object? So we brought in this API, but it's not an object yet. No, not yet. Okay, yes, how do we do that? How do we get to that point?
So CLI also shows that. This is what original goes to
So what I'm doing is create like a only thing for
Okay,
this
so
file, whatever your
we haven't actually set that part up. Yeah, no, we definitely need to. We kind of start bottom up. So.
you see something or what you have to say equal amount is equal and then the name of the right. So we're going to do whatever the
Yes. All right. So we're going to go top down. All right. Go top down. Let's go.
That's fine. That's what I was thinking.
The inputs
Next one is up to the I mean, we get the user list from the that's fine.
Okay. Now I want to think about the structure.
parameter default is a space, but then
How is what's the way this reads?
Oh, this should
There you go. Actually, that part won't happen. But have a CLI culture. Right, so we need to show, like yours, so we need shows to export and CLI require. So it's always the top layer is going to be require this export. This is exporting to this is required. So it's always going to be so, alright, we go to show right now. We need to export or show object. So let's go ahead and just continue our bottom-up structure. So right now we imported API. In API, we need to
Something's not allowed to be
create that API object. Now, how do we do that? Yes, that sounds code. So there's just a sample of it.
So you just say this just to keep track.
So we've got STD. We got that part. Got it. Now we need to create we're calling sure what's going with that. I'm just finding a code. I don't care where I'm getting it from. So we're not doing show. You're trying to import show. So what is it you're importing right now? There we go.
Yes. You can't rely on those spaces, so there's or could not there's worse.
We want to have the API both lowercase because that's okay, right?
Yes. So look at the naming conventions.
That's what I would say.
As long as it's different, but let's go with that naming convention. Alright, so now we have our API object. Now we need. Correct, yeah, we can pass parameters into it. So they would be, but we don't have them right now.
No, we'll pass them in.
We're just yeah, we can pass it in. We're just kind of like working bottom up, so it's getting weird.
Oh, so it just returns.
So let's see, what do we want to do from here? We want to create a shows object that will utilize our API.
Depends on what we did. So we are
API function.
Totally not Yes, yes. We'll do that. So pretty much constructor for our show object. So we want to create a show object. In the show object, it's going to have a property called let API user use API. Then it's going to have a function called call API, then pass the parameters. Right now we need API function. Then we're going to have another function inside our show object. So all we have is a show object. Create a function inside of it. Does that make sense? And then we want to export that show object. So what we can do right now is just create a blank show object with just this one property and then export that. So let's do that.
But is it so
We're gonna so create a show constructor. So what we want to do here is create a show constructor. One property of this let API equal new API. That's its own property. And then we're going to export that show object just for now. So we have our frame. We're just going to try to build this frame.
So just show
Right. So you want to example check out the API. You already I'm sorry, I'm probably confusing you. I'm saying before. One is an object in the export.
I haven't seen it, but I know
I'm not sure. Unless you literally do methods export, then you can say function equals function.
Yeah, that's the one
You
you
can do
were
it that way too.
He's like a cowboy.
But I'm just assuming if I haven't tried it. That's more like an input trying to create an object that's not so check out your API real quick. So your API and see how we here we did let get API equals function this. And then we did module export equals that
There's the function
get
in there.
API. So that's what we want to do. And then all this stuff in the middle, that's the one property we're going to have. So here we have two properties. Here, actually, here we would just have our this is those functions, but we're going to make our constructor. It's so simple.
That's what I think shows. Make a Oh, I meant like one neighbor.
Get rid of that new show.
Expert here to their. So
What is where show?
Here's what you just asked. Just the function product.
Yeah, just and some
wires.
So now we have a constructor, which we want.
Right, in 5 minutes we'll take a break at 8 o'clock until 8:15, and then when you guys come back from the break, we'll start the second part. We'll share the instructions, and for this part we'll put the solution, but if you guys are about to be done, just keep doing your thing and we'll share the second part.
And I don't know if you see the other one. So we're saying
So now we have our show constructor. Basic frame. It's not doing everything you want, it's not basic frame. Now we're going to do model.export. So now we create the show object. Now we can export.
An error.
Now in CLI.
Right now, the thing is, it's not the fact that there's no error.
Now we can import it.
Yeah.
So it didn't throw an error, it's just saying that you don't have permission to do this. So our issue is, for some reason, here let's try to see TV show. That's a big thing with the word TV show.
Yeah, because
We got no 405. So 405 is our issue. There's something wrong with
What?
So it actually depends on where you're running your original project. So if you're running your original project from activities, you probably have to go assignment 12 unresolved. You might have to do that.
which is this request. So this is what the issue is.
You're right. You're right. So this works.
There you go.
There we go.
Yeah.
I get it.
So one of the things that we need
Something's wrong in our.
which is
All good. It's all good. Right now we're just trying to build that little tree. Get the tree all the way up, and then stuff can start flowing and growing. So that's what we're trying to do. Just want to get that skeleton up right now. It's no fun to fancy show. Did you get some?
Name it Sean. John.
Nearly identical.
Someone else knows, but I don't know. Versus just programmers don't actually have to type fast. I don't know programmers because this is the rate of programmers type.
Right, is that right?
That's the rate of the programmer. Being slow typer, you're irritated for half a second, and then you go back to this, and then copy paste. So it's all good. As long as you know your hotkeys and the jitter all fast. So that's where your typing speed comes in. Just get to the line once it gets right there. Okay. The most times I've ever seen people training on typing speeds is being able to go through command line and tapping. You need to be a master at tabbing. I've seen people blow up instantly because you don't know how to just tabbing at the bottom. People are just like, type this. So we do start with pick the record. You're fast typer, like, dude, what are you doing? Like, stop.
So when this is executed, so function, and once we get the data, then it's going to execute that function. The question is,
Yep. Master that. That's the only thing I've ever seen anyone blow up as a typing exercise. It's you don't have that.
I just want to see this.
So you can be a totally slow typer, you're fine. When it comes to tech, you better not use it.
Okay, so this is officially break. If you guys want to take until 8:15. Alright.
All of your file directories We're building our tree structure right now. We have to get to everything out of college.
They're not charging you for it.
Yeah.
So if you can
Maybe it's right off.
Alright, so what we do here is right here we show have our inputs, we have get inputs. So now we need to create show. So go ahead and create show.
So up at the top you have more requests. And
Alright, let's not do it up here. Let's do it where you start. Where you're quote.
Really want to look that up.
Alright, yeah, so let's do it here.
You know what, I can see your
It's too small, it's a screen. I mean, it's not bad, it's fine. Really, but yeah, nothing really
Oh yeah, so create our show on like we did is the API object.
No, he's made the bulk of his fortune. You need CLI to show that it showed up.
Are we just doing here inside shows? What do we do with our API?
Does that make sense?
Yeah, we're going to get rid of that one.
even though we have
Line 7.
You're essentially not extracting all of the implementations of these methods.
No, we just need line 5, that's it.
Find show and obviously find out. It's the only thing that I did that in right there.
Yeah.
So you're only exposing the function.
Alright, so that's what we do. But yeah,
where like let's say I said show
now why will that not work?
I mean, it won't do anything now. It's just gonna so you grab that show, then you're using your water show. So we have a show online too. You would say. Our cover show for the new show, and then
Exactly. So it's always top down. So that's where our little picture comes from. These are all. So this one has this one. This one. You need to find visualization that works for you. But it starts with the hierarchy. And then visualize what works best after.
I found it.
But the model will always export.
And then it terminated when I pasted that.
So shows will always import the API. The API will always export the shows. Shows will always export to CLI. CLI will always import shows. So if it's above it, it's going to import shows. If it's below it, it's going to export CLI. I mean, you can do like however you want to picture it or word it, but that's one way.
Can we clear that detail I was asking? Oh, I think we can try.
So now you're exporting the show constructor. So yeah, so now you can delete line 19. So now that was good. So now this is good. We need to use the class.
Where was it? We did that.
And so see how you have your show. And if you're so how can we? So that's going to be a drawing.
CLI won't execute. That's the command line. So that's just show and everything else. So CLI is only taking in your inputs and calling the correct object with that input. That's all CLI is doing. Alright. So all these things, but now why won't this work stuff?
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So for writing user shows, it's not a variable that you can But by typing it in there, it's down to see it.
Yeah. One thing I was supposed to add, I'm gonna fire that down.
You need to call
There's actually a segment
So why won't this line work? Alright, look at the spelling for show. Right there. New show. So what is new show? What is that? What is show? What is it? Case sensitive. Correct. You have to be the same. Now it's standardized, keep it capitalized. What I'm saying, it's standard practice, keep it capitalized. That way you know this is equal to blah, blah, the object is the first letter capitalized. So that as you're reading it, I can see that. Yeah, that's always an issue. That's always code standard, but as far as the code's concerned, they make it the same. So that's it. That's what matters. And then after that, it depends on what best practices are. Follow that. Alright, so we have our show object. So now, what can we do with the show object? What's
in the stroke? So
And this is the way
We got that. Right. So nothing that CLSI can do right now because shows has nothing. But what it shows, actually there's one thing we can do. What it shows in
that's what it's working. Result is best.
Yeah,
So in here, before it starts writing up new show, what shows the signature? What's the signature? I don't think he's ever used this keyword before. I've used the keyword before, but so if you go back to show, on a function, this is called a signature. So show his signature is being created with this signature. So we now know we have to call show through that same signature. And actually, I think it just tells us we just covered over it. Boom. So that's where we now where these parameters exist.
Find show and find aggregate does not exist unless you create a brand new object that has no
Correct. Now, is that
when I say consume, I mean, you know,
Exactly. So it feels like
now that you know, let's go back to your Alright, so now we have So,
There we go. There we go. That's great.
So this red does that?
most of the time we get so variable names when most often is cancels. And then when you're creating so when you require stuff, those are that way you can distinguish. So
Yes.
Yeah, request is usually but here
I'm terrible.
Yeah. Sometimes it's hard to be creative.
Command array.
And just by adding that,
Square brackets. Square brackets separated by 5.
That's not gonna do it.
That's perfect.
Just do it in console.
oh, we have to follow.
Yes.
Okay. So to actually, I want to actually do it.
See, you got one show.
So instead of doing let input equals, now just do that would be one. So you guys can do it, yes.
Well, it depends where you're looking at it.
Oh, it's taking space. There's space. So yeah, that's your one line.
So far, you don't need the.
That was an expression.
Mine doesn't.
Just do
So
all
then
the
you're reading together.
So your console logging error, it's no, because that's good, that means it's an error.
It's negative. Check your inputs. What's calling get inputs? Right. So now, what is it doing next? Right. Now what's
Being returned nothing. So you make another variable there.
I know my sound.
This line looks. Oh, we got rid of that. But what that stays inside the brackets, right? We had still use that line.
I gotta get him.
right? Got it. Well, no, it's in a function saying you use the bar.
To make
If you declare them outside, bar equals this, then they could have said it goes up. But don't do that because now your function is declared. Yeah, now your function has dependencies. And never really want your function to have.
You can do that too. This just makes
Never want them to have so having them declare it like that, there's when
Oh, I see.
now you have no global dependencies now. You can use pop that function and know how to use that. Yeah, dependencies like that. Then you pop that function and what else did this take? Oh man, it took all these 5 other variables. Where are those and how did those impact the rest of the code? At that point, you're coupling. It's called the coupling. And we don't want that. So we want the functions to be as standalone as possible. So that's why we ended up returning variables versus creating global variables.
Oh, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
How are we gonna get these
before you do that, run
Oh, you already got you cut these. Yeah, there were 4.
All right, so the solution for this was posted on Slack. If you guys were, somebody's having issues or not able to complete it, I have the solution up here also. The more important, the only thing over here is this: you're making a request call, right, and getting it, and then showing the file. Okay. All right, so let me know if you guys have questions about this one, and go ahead and start the second part. This is the show. The second part is finding the actor. So it'll be very, very similar. We'll continue this activity until, let's say, 8:45, 8:50, and then we'll look at the other part. All right. You guys doing good?
You're building up.
Getting there?
Even if you don't get more understanding. That's more.
Actually, yeah, if you want to come
I did to look at your everything I've usually rolled
here
through.
in East
Oh yeah, because your code's always easier to understand than some other people. Okay, cool. So that's awesome. So what we've done here is in our CLI, we're recording shows, we're getting our inputs, now we're calling shows with those inputs. Awesome, that's exactly what we want. So now shows needs to do something. So we have to generate shows that finish this. Actually, that once you created it, now it imports API, and we do nothing.
But it's working fine.
Yeah, just a one.
That's the separate.
Yeah, that's just a one.
Essentially, split a string.
That's actually the next topic. It's called that something, but you want to
Yes. Yeah. And that's exactly what the CLI will handle that switch.
No, all we have to do.
But right now we don't have actors.
So we already have the base. All we have to do is change it to the.
Well, what's our show does, then add the switch, put an actor, so it's going to show
This part.
So
Let's just the action that we're doing.
yeah, that's what we do. All right, so we have our show. Now show needs to do something. We have this all
People. So once it's people,
and just to prove that we have this, let's go ahead and just console log hello show and see what happens. Actually, before that, before that, let's create an object called. That way we have. Yeah, so create a function.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Just as long as people see it.
Yeah, I just want to be able to test something, so we have a working base code that's doing everything.
That's why I'm a homework under such answers loaded.
Right. I do that stuff all the time. Like, yeah, hooked up in the
it goes crazy. There we go. Yeah. So what we're doing.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah. I basically want to
Alright, now, because this is a object. Yes, that's good. This is an object, so instead of doing let, what do we do?
parameters.
This is a JSON.
Are just like you're creating
Function
programming
yeah.
whatever it is that we
Probably do that for you. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
let's just say
parameters.
There you go. Alright, so I think now in CLS. No, I just wanted to show you like this is an actual So now what are we going to do to call that function?
Up here,
Just to see our
because when someone's calling
Oh, no, yeah. You're on the right track.
so I want to know, I want to very descriptive. What is that action?
Yeah, there you go.
and shows like this.
Yeah, because it shows like the secondary files.
They're very
They're
very
basically where all the
but you don't have to do a let or a file. And it's expected.
see, this is see how much smoother it is? Can you imagine it? How much sure you did a pretty big mess, right? And I'm imagine dealing with a project instead of having, you know, 40 files, I've got files, 20,000. You're not very maintainable, right? So, you know, this is basically each
reference area is not fine.
essentially responsible. One is
Yeah, that's gonna be an
show
API.
is responsible
So over here,
finding
the
the
word
show.
error is not fine. Why is it
And
not fine?
essentially giving you the
Because we have error instead of error.
Yep.
CLI is basically this entity that interacts with
No.
we don't want both files to be equal. We want both files having
And now, just so that for this object, it's also a JSON function object. What do we do? Yeah. The URL would be like this URL.
And this, so why do that instead of
So because it was actually
now
just
a
executing
log
line,
set
right?
for
We're just executing.
yeah, now just need to know what the actions
It's
are.
fine to show the reason. I know, right?
It's
The reason we don't need to be we only want
constructed in some different things.
its context.
Calling it. That's the semester.
Yeah, we call it show, but then it shows.
URLs are fine. Why is
So we
URL?
need an actor's name.
Now this URL.
Yep, it's gonna be the same thing with the app.
We need name, birthday, gender, country.
So actors gonna use the
Two
exact
DAs.
Alright, now we can refine this so you're a bit more by, notice how when we created the object, we needed to get it. Do we want it to operate that way? And the next API we have to create a new object? Or do we want it to be a function that we can create and pass in? And stuff like that? That's what I'm assuming. Okay, so we had to modify this just a little bit.
Okay.
So,
Similar
what we want to do is
URL.
the request object that we're making, we need to encapsulate that.
It will be in the
That's the column. Because right now it's just going to execute. It's going to execute the multiple objects.
We're just at the time show.
Now if we put that in a function, it'll execute what we want it to execute.
No, find after, oh, you guys still have to do the log.
We would just do that
and then you just get rid of the request, right?
What are the
Right? Name, birthday.
Functions inside the function.
So find show doesn't, find show only prints to the
Baby. Gender.
So
So this is all the information.
right, so in order to print the file,
It's dying. It's clicking, like playing with it. Keep turning it on. So I'm watching the batteries like die.
yeah, no, that's fine. Right. Yeah, why?
It's not because this is where all the information is.
That's
It's
one,
not
two,
being part of
Like
the
we were finding. Or that other weird one that was on for a short while.
Oh, yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah. We're just
Yeah, that can actually not last long.
Yeah.
Oh, like literally limbs. Yeah. That's so average, right?
They like it when you do bad jobs sometimes.
Yeah.
It's true. Oh, people around you like it.
Activity on,
That works for streaming.
you can leave it.
Roughly.
Yeah. That looks good.
So, which is essentially a big limb.
Just showing
Now,
And can blow up.
No,
Hopefully not. Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
It's literally just to measure height to the head.
It is, right. And there's our trying to say about that. So when he said really nice show, I was like, wait a
okay. So now we have an object that we can try.
Two A's. J, E, and
Nothing that important. Alright, so we have an object that we initialize and pass our variables, and then on command it executes the URL. But what if we want to change those variables?
You get your 404.
I believe
So
however,
we have an object that's getting initialized with variables, creating this URL. So once we create that object, yeah, now we can call the execution on command, which is auto run when we want to call it. But what is being executed?
I mean,
Right, that was great. So if we ever want to change it, what would we have to do? Correct. Is that a behavior we want?
No, but I don't know if it's worth fixing at this point.
Okay, that's an answer. That is a legit answer. So let's go to show.
But in order to do this,
so, see how you have console log, show our name, show our comment.
It'll execute now.
You basically,
we'll call that we'll call that
Yeah, it's not getting executed here. We don't want to. It was executed. They were preventing that. So yeah, let's go show. Alright, now shows we happen to already import this .api. So once we create it, we create the API. What does API take? What's the signature of our code? Yeah, just go ahead and file and here's what it's supposed to be. I didn't tell it since it just failed us there. That was just a IntelliSense fail. So
See how created basically,
That's really what it is.
but you know, we initializing API, we got that screen. Now we want to actually execute. So what are we going to do?
so we have
Now we're going to have to call it action. So here's kind of a decision we have to make as a team now. How do we want to get when the variable? So from CLI, we say pass it shows. CLI takes this and just wants it to shows and then shows use the word form, or do you want CLI to control it?
writing
the
different.
shows, or it could be or are we already in the shows?
There's no right answer.
Well,
I
You can take out six regardless of the and then just copy paste. So
And he also knows that
It looks rad.
I'm set right now.
It's like a Honda Civic with a Corvette body on it.
Actually, I saw this neon the other day, and it had like a little spoiler that was screwed onto the back of its rear end, and it's just like this big.
Is that light too?
Yeah. I mean, obviously it was a joke.
Yeah.
So we can take a
Object.
Well, I've had some depression.
That's I guess not work. It's fine.
before I would have just. Understandable. And now it's giving you this damn error.
I'm only half.
No, everything will happen inside.
Any indication on what may have done it?
And it started looping. And it wouldn't turn back on. Every time I tried to turn it off and turn it on again, it would go back on.
Is this updating to the new version of Windows 10?
As far as I know,
On the last week I read about Windows 10 update, like deleting user data. Like totally, if someone does an update, I think it would have to have been very intentional. One of those new service packages. It doesn't update, comes back and
yeah, I haven't
you do
I
that.
haven't done kind of update. I was like in the middle of doing something I guess I'll try to find out.
Turbulence.
When I think about and then while I was here,
There's nothing that can make that better. Hard work is
So I never sold shows today. Works by the that bottom.
Now, this callback function is called sole purpose. It's basically
Right. So this is
I can tell you, you guys are young, I can tell you.
and then you do the parts, and then you get it.
Or if you should say it. Living this life here for a while. See if it has more value, and if it does, but it should never be an automatic.
You don't, you want to use this and have that handle.
So how much longer before the next little
The what? You're done?
Yeah, we take a break.
Yeah, you take a break.
But
Around 10 more minutes.
Priorities.
We'll start at like 8:50. Yeah.
USB-C. Yeah, it's a Zoom.
I was gonna ask what that is.
So,
no different.
the biggest thing that I've heard on the assignment is the on the log error, the homework with the trainer.
Yeah.
If you could put in like commands to run through the homework, and then just run it, it's supposed to be free, you just run them all. But every time the brain is just spamming the console.
There was no errors. So what about our
Oh, yeah.
I solved it without even meaning to solve it. I wanted to be able to do it a specific way, so I was longing to write the log file. And it just so happened to be the thing that solved it. It was, my brother was telling me about that, and I was like, figure it out. Like, I'm thinking like, what are we talking about? It's just fine. And I went to my code and I was like, it wasn't an accident.
Yeah, so it's not successful.
Production code.
It works. Just pass it. Just go. But I want to see what our response to the code is. So if we did console log, in addition to the console log error, just enter console log our response.
So basically,
A lot of stuff that you have to do.
so it's having 2 files, and when I went to bring it in,
Something else, something else.
Nick, I think the purpose was to practice importing files on that. I think they have to do it as 2 files. We want to make it harder.
That's just the.
Are we doing the callback one?
Yes, after this.
And we can stand up. Yeah,
Ooh, Walking Dead.
So it's not show, it's show. So down here in our
This is what I
so instead of having
H O double
insert screens, because sharp. Oh, okay. I was like, didn't you do a switch?
I had ideas to how to do it. We didn't really know the
Yeah, so that's body. We just can't along that with body.
I mean, technically, this is going to be.
So what we can do, now we need to get. Yeah, we're gonna have to string. We can JSON dot parse. So we can do.
User input and show and objects like 2D, and as you can see, we would have created it just to go show that show and passing show that, so that we would execute this one thing to call and log it. And in other words, if we would have broken it out, this is from a main call, an actor function, show function, log it, and control and which will set up to be very flexible.
Was it done?
Quick question. No. From here, now that we have body in our response, and request is an asynchronous call, right? So if we want to return our body outside of API, it's probably in the music callback function. So I would say call this function back when you're done. It's going to do a callback function. My question is, how does that work? Shows imports APIs, and then API shows passes a function, the callback function of its own. How does API and import know the callback user?
It's the same exact thing
Obviously.
So at this point, you have whatever the goes to you want to
Right, so like go to shows.
Oh wait,
Right, so in shows we're calling make request. Now we want the body back. And I want shows to mark up the body. And we just want for that particular request. So like pass, like how I'm thinking of it, because we can't just do return body. We can't, that won't work. So we would have to from here say pass. I have another function that says parse JSON. Parse my JSON. I'm creating a function. How can I pass that function into API as a callback function? That API can then call back.
I'm gonna download all of them.
And then how does that work with importing and exporting?
She's never sent
No, like 99.9.
you the importing exporting what remains the same. But it's a callback function, right? So you have to define this thing as expecting a callback function. So your
The function will be a parameter.
right.
The signature will have a parameter in it.
Yes.
That's the callback function.
Yep.
What I'm concerned about is how how we have to do the imports and exports. If show imported API, and now it's asking the function from show into API. How does API make that callback back to shows? So will we just say this dot function name or this dot? So if we created here, for example, we have I'm here. We have to track that. So we did I'm here. And we passed that. This into make API. We can pass. Will we be able to pass that in? So that way, when this is done, Like I'm just curious. I guess I asked before I tried it, but I'm just concerned. Like we didn't import shows over here. Like it should be able to still call.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I don't.
Okay.
I don't see why you.
Alright, so then
So it's a function.
type a callback right there and open those parentheses.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Then it was
Okay, and execute. Oh, save show.
Paradise.
So we should say yay twice.
Yeah, a lot of people covered.
Perfect, that works.
So there shouldn't be anything in there.
I was considering.
I
can't talk back.
No, because your export is still a function. It doesn't matter to this. It's just a parameter. That's an argument, right? So it doesn't get a callback.
Okay. Yeah. So as far as the show is concerned,
It is so funny.
All his stuff.
We did the same callback. We had the same callback. It's similar. Yeah, I don't know what's there.
I know what's going on. He said I don't know what's going on. Why you guys are saying we just did the same callback function you guys did 5 minutes later.
Yeah, these guys are the same.
I know what's going on.
you were just
Now,
And he came over and he's like, you guys,
And he's very
we're about to go.
Yeah.
okay. So instead, what we want to do is create to the line here. Obviously, we want to create a function that parses JSON that we return. So let's go ahead and create that function here in this first. So similar to this item here. But different one.
So, yeah.
That's what I said. That's what coding is. How fast can you write
Alright guys, in 1 minute, let's start wrapping up. Are you guys, so I'll ask, Will, can you post a solution? He's going to post a solution for the next one and we'll go over it. Seems like everybody, are you guys on the cusp of solving it?
We did.
We did it?
Yeah.
Oh, done? Okay.
We were hanging on the cusp for quite a while.
Yeah, okay. It looks like most of the teams are done. I'm going to just reset this. And let's see the final solution. I'm pretty sure you guys already got it. The CLI still remains the same. You guys, if you guys were able to do the find show, the actors is exactly the same thing, and you're appending it to the file. Okay. Any questions? There will be like a couple of different solutions using callback. Those are other options. Again, this is not the only solution. You guys can do another solution. All right. Any questions? Oh, it's the same. This is a simpler one. It's not using.
You're not going back. You're just.
Yeah, it's a procedural one versus. I like that one better. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I gotta modularize it.
Right.
So it's just taking the API and making it one small code.
Yeah.
And obviously it can't flow that way,
Yeah.
so it has to sit back.
Yep.
We want to shows to handle the parsing of the show data.
Right.
And then actors that handle parsing Jack is not
Was finished.
the API.
Not the Okay. Any questions? Otherwise, we are going to move into our new topic. Yes.
So now if we go back to our API code real quick. Alright, so now our callback function is going to require a parameter called body. So let's pass that button back. Make it simple. Comment that back onto that one.
paste it in here and just call it
after it gets
So we have this callback function that takes in body. So now our API is going to call body. Now if we go back to shows, now here, just so we did that. Now console.log out key body.
All right, is everybody ready?
Make API request we need to pass this body.
Okay, so this is the next exercise, but I will solve it over here. You guys watch it and you guys can follow it. You guys already did a lot of coding, so take a look at it, but it's very important. It's kind of revision of callbacks. We have looked at callbacks before. So we'll start with calling or using those callback functions. Again, this has already been used in the in this project also. The write file method, right? We saw the write file method in this project, and how are we using it? At this point, we're kind of more familiar with it. So it is fs dot write file, right? And then how many parameters write file is taking? 2, 3, 1, 2. Write file. 3, right? Yeah. So the first one is the name of the file, right? So I can say log.txt. That's what you guys did. And the second is the message or whatever you want to put it in, right? And the third is a callback function, right? This is what we did. So this is something that has already been defined. We are using this function which expects a callback function as an argument, the last parameter. Okay, so this will be a callback function. Okay, and we saw this in write file. We did it in the mini project. We saw this is part of Node, the FS module. I already have required on the top. I'm just using write file method here. Okay. Callback function. Okay, so now I have to mention a callback function over here. So for now, we've been seeing how can we do this. What we do is we create an anonymous function, right? And we know that the write file method is expecting a callback function which it has one parameter, right? Which is called error. And it's going to publish an error inside this variable. Okay. All right. And then we did if there is any error. Oops, not this. Then we did a console log of that error. Okay. So this is how we use a function that has a callback function as its argument. Okay, now we don't have any control over this, that they have already defined that a callback should have an argument, should have a parameter, so that's how you have to define it. Okay, now since again at the end of the day this is still a function, right? The other way I can write this is I can create a function separately. Okay, I can say function callback okay. You can put the if condition. Just want to show. So this is exactly does the same job. Okay, you don't have to create anonymous function. Over here, I'm not doing an anonymous function. I'm creating a function which has a name and all that stuff. Okay, this is another way to do it. Let me missing what? A B. Okay, I'm just going to copy this. That's much easier. That's why it's complaining. Oops. Okay, so this is also valid. I'm not using an anonymous function. The first case was using an anonymous function. All right. The other way to write the same function would be, I can do a var callback function is equal to function. Okay, this is also the same way. So we have seen three ways. The first is the anonymous function. The second and third are where you're defining the functions. But defining the function, we have two different syntax. We can do a function name and then do it, or you can do a var function name and then equal to function. Okay, three different syntax. Does the exact same thing. All right, let's if I open this, I have a txt file. All right. Let me close it. Since there is no error, that's why it's saying no. Okay, I can put if condition and it won't show up. All right. So, and we've seen this before. So this is just a revision on the callbacks. Okay, this is how you call a callback function that has already been defined. Now let's see if we have to define a callback function. Right. So that's the first part of that. It says write a function that logs a message, then executes a function argument. Okay. So a callbacks is a function argument, right? So I have to create a function that takes in two arguments. One is a message and the second is a function. I'm going to use this syntax. All right, I'm going to say let me call this function log message. Okay, takes in two. The first is message, so let me say message. Okay, and second is a function. At this point, if you look at this code, can you tell what is the data type of these parameters or arguments? Can you tell if one is a function or one is a string? No, right? Yeah, you cannot. So JavaScript is the same. It doesn't know at this point whether I'm passing a function or I'm not. What would happen is what I do inside this function. So let me say I'm going to log this message as the exercise says. Okay, and then it says call this function. Okay, at this point JavaScript is going to be like, okay, the second argument that I'm passing in, that's a function, and that's a callback function. Okay, so this is how you would define. So write file is kind of defined in a similar way. They would have a function, and when you pass in that, they are calling that function. Okay, similarly what you are doing is, and again this is just a definition, I haven't called this function at all. Which function? This function. So I'm defining a function that takes two arguments. One is message and one is some function, and I call this a callback function. Okay, at this point if I run this, nothing is going to happen, no changes, because I'm not calling this function. Okay, now let's go ahead and call this function. I'm going to call log message same way that I call my write message, right? Write file. So I'm going to say log message. Okay, this is a message. Okay, the first argument is some string, the second is a callback function. right, is expecting a function. I could do the anonymous part here, same thing. I'll say function, no need, no, I don't have any parameters, okay. Okay, so I'm going to pass this function, and inside this I would do a function. Okay, so you see what it does is, first it says this is message and this is coming from, I pass in this thing, it goes over here, and then it calls this over here, done. All right, and then it's going to call whatever function that I passed in. And what is my function that I'm passing in? I'm passing in this. It's an anonymous function. I can create a new one and then pass in, same thing. Okay, I can copy this and create a then say var callback function. Okay, and this, pass this in, should output the same thing. Okay, just different ways. Again, this function is expecting a string or a message and a function, and this is exactly what I'm doing. When I call this, I'm passing in a string, message, and a function, and this is my function declared on the top. Okay, questions? Okay, so before I go on to the next one, I want to show you if I want to pass an argument, and that's what's right now we have seen. We don't have any parameters over here, right? Just empty, empty, empty. But if you see the right file, the function that you pass in should have a parameter, right, which is error. So how do we do the same thing? So let me create a new function here. This is callback function here. Okay. Okay. So let me call it function log another log message function. Okay. So I have the same thing here. This time I will just say takes a function. Okay, now I have a new function that I'm declaring, and this one takes an argument as a callback function, just one callback function and nothing else. Okay, inside my function I have let's say m is equal to, and this is some message. Okay, I have this variable, and what I'm saying is the function that I'm being passed in, call that function with this argument. Okay, so this is just declaration again. So I'm creating a new function which takes parameter a callback function, so that's why you see func, and I call that function and I'm passing in something. I'm passing in a variable over here. Okay, and now how do I call this? This is going to be exactly how write file is going to be gets called. Okay, so I would say another log message, and then I have to pass in a anonymous function. I'll use the anonymous function first, and then I have to pass in something, right? Let me pass in m. Okay, let's go ahead and log this message M. Let's run this. See, there's some message. So the second example is if you have some parameters that you need to call that function, and this is what this is how you create this callback function. This is what write file is doing. So you don't know how it is working internally, what it is, but the expectation is that the function that you pass in or the function that you call in should have a parameter. Could be anything, but it should have one. And this is what we did. We defined, this is how write file is also probably defining something similar. It's not as simple as this one, but it has a write file, it expects a function, and then it's calling your function, passing in some variable that is defined inside that function. And that's when you call it, you say, okay, this is my function, I have to pass this in, and then you console log it. Okay, so this is how internally write file is also working. Okay. Questions? And it's kind of a lot to take in at this point. But this is how you write callback functions. If you want to pass something in, if you want to have a no parameter callback also, but this is how you would write it. And this is how write file is also working. They have, what does a callback does? What it does is that it performs its own operations, and then at some point it will call the function that you're passing in. That's why it's called a callback. Okay? We saw in the previous classes callback functions calls later on when it is done. And this is how it is doing. So write file also has something, it does whatever it does, writes the file, does it, and then at some point it will call the function that you are passing in. Okay? In the previous activity, a couple of groups used this callback functionality to write the file, to call the APIs. So, you know, you guys can share your code on Slack. So, you know, that's another good example how you can use callback functions. All right. It's kind of hard to see in this use case because I'm just showing you how it is written, how it is done. But this would be like the high level. This is how you create callback functions, and I just wanted to show you how internally it is working. This is how it actually works inside, because write file, again, you don't see what's going on, but this is what is going on. Write file has something, it does something, and then at some point it calls your function. Okay? All right, let's see. I'll pose the solutions. The next one are something similar, but these are the more important ones that I wanted to show you guys. How the callback, how to define a callback function, how does it work, the inside, how is it working, all that stuff. So this is how the callback works. Okay. This was the I'll pose the solutions and everything in a bit. So this was the last activity. We'll do a checkpoint, and Will or Nick will Slack out the link. Take the checkpoint until the end of the class, till 9:30. If you guys are here after 9:30, you know, the TS can go over the answer for the solutions. Before that, this Saturday I'll be here, I'll be teaching, and we will be looking at SQL databases. Yeah. Oh God, good responses. So we will discuss more. The more painful point of that is the installation, but keep a lookout on the channel, on the Saturday channel. I'm going to post some prerequisites. You know, go ahead and install those stuff. I'm going to post something probably tomorrow evening. But in the class, we'll go over. If the installation doesn't work, we'll try to figure that out. But that's probably the more painful part of SQL. But that's the topic for Saturday. All right.
That is fast. Very fast.